Welcome to Taiwan Talks. My name is Annie. The 2024 Taiwan presidential election has recently concluded with Lai Ching-te and Bing Kim-hsiao from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party emerging as the winners. Now, China has swiftly conveyed its disapproval. An article authored by Chinese President Xi Jinping published in the Chinese Communist Party's prominent journal and news journal Qiu Shi addressed Taiwan directly. The article stressed the importance of bolstering patriotic unification forces in Taiwan, countering Taiwanese independence, and promoting Taiwan's complete reunification with China. Now, what underlying message does China seek to convey? Joining us today are Mr. Yuan I, Adjunct Research Fellow at National Chengchi University's Institute of International Relations, and Yan-Ping Su, Professor in National Chengchi University's Department of Political Science. Professor, welcome to the show. The central theme of Xi Jinping's article focuses on the thorough and precise implementation of the important party's United Front strategy in a new era. As we can see, it highlights the United Front, develop and strengthen the patriotic pro-unification forces in Taiwan, oppose the separatist acts of Taiwan independence, and promote the complete reunification of the motherland. It also stated that now United Front work is neither outdated nor unimportant. Instead, it has become increasingly important. Now, Professor, I would like to ask, after Taiwan's election, we can see that Xi Jinping is taking that very important and more assertive stance. What do you think is the message that's being conveyed here?
Actually, indeed, this is time-honored strategy since the inception of the CCP. But this time, I think that the very, very important message conveyed by this reiteration of the importance of this to clarify. Well, the content of this article actually was the remark delivered some time ago. It was delivered on July 20th, 2022. So what makes the Xi Jinping to bring back this message is intriguing. I think it is a message not necessarily addressed to Taiwanese people at all. Actually, it is a message to convey very, very important signal in times of difficulties to the party member of the CCP.
Okay.
So this is a very common practice by the CCP. Each time that they face a formative challenge, they would, address to their party cadre first and foremost to exert a cohesive, to exert cohesion, of the party strengths, could be derived to face any daunting challenge is the first prerequisite.
And you used a very interesting word, intriguing, as we can see here, as what you mentioned earlier, that this message probably is not for people or civilians here in Taiwan, but rather to the party members at CP. So do you think that after seeing the results of Taiwan's election, what Xi is trying to stress out to the party members is any different from the methods that he was using before?
I think, as I stated, that each time they faced, they are in a precarious political situation. They would rather to unite their strengths, their political will first, before moving on the second phase. And also, this is one of the pillars, the three pillars that CCP has adopted. The other two are armed struggles that will be discussed momentarily about their use of force against Taiwan. And also the third one is a party cohesion. That's a party elements, party organization. Altogether, three in one would be a very comprehensive tackling on any challenges.
And Professor Su, your comments?
Yeah, I agree with Professor Yuan's comments, and he just provided a very insightful point about what this statement really indicates. But my point is that for the implication of this statement for Taiwanese people is that it is actually a kind of statement that expressed the disappointment with Taiwanese election results. After all, the KMT is so far the only actor that has been held dialogue with the CCP regime, and the KMT is actually the only major political actor with considerable political strength that is willing to accept unification with China, and under certain circumstances. So the message is also a prelude of a more severe diplomatic struggles for Taiwan. So specifically, it is expected that China will definitely ramp up more pressures on Taiwan's survival in international arena.
So do you think from this message, do you think that, she probably also wants to strategize by winning Taiwanese hearts? Do you think this is going to happen ultimately, or do you think that this is, this is not probably on the agenda?
The statement is not new at all. So I think Xi Jinping just tried to continue his own stances and the whole party's stance. So basically, I don't think there's any hint that this kind of statement can win Taiwanese hearts. It can just, at best, keep this low intensity tension continuously, but rather it is also possible that no one knows that in the future perhaps something more intense will come up.
Right. And then after seeing the results, we're kind of seeing it also reflect Taiwanese people's exercise of free will. So back to you, Professor Yuan, you also mentioned the 3 pillars previously. So how do you think, or how do you interpret Xi Jinping's belief that China's united front strategy will become even more important in the future?
I think the past offered lessons for the CCP. That
Right.
Each time they face failure, they will work double their efforts, tend to conquer the hurdles, all right? They demonstrated they achieved this. So they have a very, very self-confident in themselves about this strategy. I'm repeating, utilize this strategy time and again, only demonstrated they will prevail according to their political interpretation.
But do you think that by seeing the election results, do you think China will probably be a little bit more worried than they were ever before?
That's exactly the reason that they would need to have for more psychological counseling. Okay,
Right.
console their souls about this defeat. So they will have to readdress their attention and also reconfigure their strengths and working toward the very political goal imposed by the party.
And see, this is the very interesting part, because as we can see back in, especially in recent years, we're saying, probably people were saying that, China was exercising propaganda or military exercise and all that. But now we're seeing the defeat and the results now. And as you're saying that China would probably also self-reflect. Now, how do you think China is going to do differently in the future? Professor Yuan?
I think they are confident. The time is on their side. However, that each time they suffer the setbacks, they will, retreat a bit. I think this is a time for retreat. So they are anticipated to have a next round of preparation. That is 4 years after that, 4 years later. So I think that it's a time for them to reconfigure, to resettle, and to rethink. Okay, this is a very, very important, psychology that outside has to be aware of.
Right. So are you also saying that for the coming 4 years, we can actually expect it to be more peaceful than to having more tension?
I think it will be safe to anticipate it. They will always walk in 2 legs.
Right.
Meaning peaceful and non-peaceful.
Okay. And Professor Su?
Yeah, for the near future, I think we have to focus on 2 factors. One, of course, it is China's intent for unification, and the other is China's capability to pursue the goal. Well, the intent is not the issue because it's always there, but what varies from time to time is China's capability to achieve the goal. So in this sense, we have to pay more attention on several things. First of all, the recent military reform in China, especially the recent purge of high-ranked military officers in PLA's rocket force, and we also need to, as a Taiwanese side, we also need to build closer relationship with the United States, especially in terms of military cooperation and other kinds of efforts for further cooperation. And we also cannot ignore the danger posed by China's information warfare. As many reports have already mentioned, this united front strategy is more and more creative. I would say the strategy is diversified, and a notable and increasing effective strategy is to disseminate the disinformation and the misinformation, the so-called information warfare. So basically, that's something that we also need to pay attention to.
Do you think it's any possibility, we're just doing assumptions over here, do you think we can open to any possibilities that while China is trying to recollect and also to reflect on itself and to put themselves together back again, do you foresee that there may still be a dialogue opening between Taiwan and China?
Well, not under DPP government, I
Right.
would say. Yeah, that's the short answer. Well, maybe in the future when, I don't know, possibly Ko Wen-je or in the next KMT candidate was elected, I don't know.
All right, so this is going to directly get to our next phase, and that is Taiwan's newly elected president is set to take office on May 20th. But Lai Ching-te faces several challenges before his inauguration. His Democratic Progressive Party lost its legislative majority, an outcome that could really affect foreign policy and security decisions like the procurement of military equipment from the U.S. It could also at the same time create budgetary constraints for domestically produced submarines. Moreover, China is pressuring Taiwan prior to Lai taking office. Now, before we go into the foreign policies and diplomatic relations with other countries, I wanted to go back to President Lai for a little bit here, and that we can expect inauguration speech on May 20th. So how do you foresee this? How do you think, like for the message that he's trying to convey to China, do you think it's going to be any different from the attitude that he had before the election?
I think the safest way will be to pursue a similar path of his predecessor to begin with.
Okay.
But I think there will be room that is tailored to President-elect Lai's own style, because in the past he has been advocated strongly about being practically oriented to Taiwan, seeking Taiwan independence.
Right.
So I think that his all his supporters would very much like to see any message along that line. However, once he's in the presidential office, well, he faces a different situation, meaning that probably he will have to also transform itself into a more sophisticated politician to dealing with formidable challenges.
Okay, and Professor Su?
Yeah, I think Lai, the President-elect Lai, will continue Tsai Ing-wen's stance in terms of foreign policy making efforts, and one thing that is for sure is that he and his new government will definitely make more efforts, especially depending on Beijing Xiao's capability to strengthen the relationship with countries like the United States and other countries.
Okay, so we're looking at President Lai himself,
Yeah.
and we're probably saying that he is going to follow with President Tsai's former stance, right? But if we look at the civilians, how do you think the dynamics of the civilians will at this point of time by looking at, the election? Do you think the civilians' will was not that intense to China as before, or do you think otherwise?
Well, according to the latest survey, a public opinion survey implemented by National Chengchi University, the portion of the population, citizens that who support status quo or the status quo, and after that independence, the whole portion is right now is more than 60%. So basically, the new government also needs to take that into consideration. And so from the perspective of the people, I think most of the people in Taiwan would like to keep status quo.
Status quo, yes.
Based on the survey results. But by status quo, it means that de facto the independence, but not necessarily de jure independence.
Okay, and Professor, anything to add on that?
The election outcomes suggest that the Lai did not get a mandate, meaning he didn't get a majority's approval. Therefore, he would have to moderate his more radical stance.
Okay, understood. But President Tsai and now President Lai, I think they were all trying to follow the stance of status quo, right? But following the big news that appeared just 2 days ago of Nauru's sudden cutting off diplomatic ties with Taiwan, what do you think can the DPP government do to improve Taiwan's diplomatic relations?
I think for the bilateral formal alliance, the DPP, no doubt about it, will face even more harder challenges,
right,
as everyone would be anticipated. That is to maintain the 12 remaining diplomatic relation will be very, very tough on the one hand, and also I think what makes matters worse, once the double digits reduce into the single digit, that will generate some psychological impact on the general public. I think the government would have to take very serious precaution about this, the potential psychological impact once the number reduces into single digits.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean when you say potential psychological impact?
Meaning, it suggests that there is an irreversible trend, all right? No way that Taiwan will regain its strength along the line. I think that this will be very, very detrimental.
Right, and Professor Su, in order to avoid that from happening from double digit to single digit, what exactly can DPP do right now to cope with the fact that they have to maintain and withhold the remaining of their diplomatic allies?
Well, in my opinion, although it is unlikely, I really believe that the only way, the only feasible way is to fight back, is to try to figure out how to regain this diplomatic allies again, or build ties with new allies. It's unlikely, but so far I don't see any clue that the PPP is trying to do that. The DPP, especially in the past 8 years, the Taiwan government has done a pretty good job in strengthening relations, unofficial relations with countries like in Europe and in Southeast Asia, for example. But there seems that there's no efforts like what Chen Shui-bian had done before, trying to get new diplomatic allies. I know it is pretty controversial, and probably the opposition parties will criticize that it is too expensive to do that. But I think that so far for me, I think the only feasible way is trying to figure out a way to regain these previous diplomatic allies.
Okay, and then now we were talking about the diplomatic allies. Now I want to move back to the U.S. for a little bit. So after President Lai's election, there does not seem to have a lot of reactions from Biden yet, or from the U.S. So in your perspective, Professor Su, what do you think is the reason behind this?
I don't think it's very surprising that the Biden administration didn't issue any kind of congratulation notes about the election result in Taiwan, because as the AIT chair, Laura Rosenberg, had mentioned before the election that the U.S. Is ready to work with whoever is elected president, right? So basically, the United States, in this sense, try to keep a very low-key stance for in facing the results of the election in Taiwan. And but regarding the Biden's comment about opposing independence, Taiwan independence, I believe that it's simply about the de jure independence rather than de facto independence, because in the past several years, the United States government has done a lot of efforts to trying to maintain the de facto, help maintain the de facto status of Taiwan. So basically, it's just a reiteration of the U.S. One China policy. But it's also noteworthy that while the U.S. Stands to oppose, make it publicly to oppose Taiwan's de jure independence, that doesn't mean that the U.S. Would urge reunification for Taiwan and China, because the U.S. in its One China policy has made it very clear that the U.S. takes no position on the ultimate resolution of cross-strait relations.
So you're saying that there's no changes at all, but at the same time, the U.S. is still holding its attitude. Do you still think that maybe there is a possibility that the U.S. is showing a lack of confidence for President Lai?
Let me provide these supplementary remarks regarding U.S. Government's reaction.
Okay.
All right. It seems to me there's a division of labor between President Biden and also Secretary Blinken. When pressed to ask Biden on his way to the White House Mall lawn, he expressed a very brief, that is no support of Taiwan independence, verbal expression. However, Blinken stated, he made a statement in supportive to congratulate our election result. He did that.
So why did you think that they were acting differently?
I think the obvious reason, let us not be forgotten, a few months ago, that Biden just met Xi Jinping in San Francisco in order to foster a more cozy working relation in the remaining of his presidency. The President Biden must address the issue in such a subtle way, whereas divisions of labor for the official in charge of the foreign affairs, while he simply stated what he failed to state.
I see. Okay, but now Professor Yuan, back to you again. Philippines, on the other hand, actually gave President Lai a congratulatory note. So what do you also think this means? Do you think there will be a tighter relationship between the Philippines and Taiwan in the near future?
I really doubt it. I think it would be a gesture, simply a gesture.
Okay.
Everybody knows given the very, very tense relation between Philippines and China,
right.
recent years over the dispute island. So this is, I think, this is the opportunity that Philippines simply to utilize to send a very, very, unfriendly signal to Beijing.
Okay.
In response to their, treatment of the island, the dispute.
Oh, okay.
So I really suspect they will change fundamentally and drastically to upgrade the bilateral relation with Taiwan.
So what you're saying here is really it's just a gesture to show their disapproval to China, but does not necessarily mean they will have a tighter relationship with
I think an emotional response will not be converted into a concrete policy.
Okay, do you agree, Professor Su?
I agree with Professor Yuan, and I also want to add that probably there's also a signal that shows the Philippines' hedging strategy, which means that it still tries to at some point show some signal to the United States that don't forget us, in terms of the security and military cooperation between Philippines and the United States. But at the same time, it just use this kind of a statement to express a certain kind of autonomy of the Philippines. But in the future, I think there still might be some chance that the Taiwan can build up closer relations with the Philippines. But the chance is pretty low. It is for sure that the government has already done something. So for example, to grant it more possibility for extending a work visa for migrant workers from the Philippines, etc.
Okay. And final question, which is also a very important question, is, during the Biden-Xi summit, Xi Jinping said that China had no plans for a 2027 move on Taiwan, right? Now, but here that President Lai is elected president, and I think both professors also mentioned earlier that probably there is not going to be any shift in, Xi's stance. They're trying to play safe and status quo at the same time. But do you think that Taiwan will still continue to be a central flashpoint between China and the U.S.?
No doubt about it. I think this is a time-honored, unsolved issues needs to be dealt with. So I think the nature of the international environment might change a bit. However, the core elements still persist, meaning that power struggle, the military struggle solution to settle this unsettled issues will continue.
Yeah, in the region of East Asia, I think it's still a pretty important issue for the U.S.-China relations. But as I said, for Taiwan, there will be more severe diplomatic struggles, and China will definitely increase pressures on Taiwan's international space.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Yuan and Professor Su. We had a very good and comprehensive talk today about the election results of President Lai of Taiwan and what it's going to mean to China and the U.S. in the future. Now, thank you very much for watching our show. If you like our show, please hit subscribe and please leave any comments if you have any questions. Meanwhile, please stay safe and see you all next time.